There we go. And yes, if you haven't already, please type the track or series that you're with in the chat when you get a second. But again, thanks for joining us. My name's Ross. We're just going to be kind of going over some of the basics tonight. Please slow me down if I get going too fast, because some of this is easy to breeze over. And I will say that if you were on the 1 o'clock, or if you missed the 1 o'clock, I guess regardless, that is available on our Facebook promoter support group as well, if you'd like to go back and review anything or hear it from a different perspective. But I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we will get started here. So first thing I want to touch on is just the initial setup process. So I presume most of you have been through kind of the claiming of a profile, what that looks like. You basically, there's obviously MRP, My Race Pass, is a directory of different tracks and series that are available to be claimed. Once they're claimed, it kind of creates your internal tooling, your dashboard, if you will, where we'll then make you an admin, and from there you can select the plan that you'd like to have. Typically, what most people are after is just our race management system, but there is a whole lot more to it than that. I do recommend, obviously, the Plus plan. If you've started out there, is a good place to kind of get the basics going, but definitely take a look at these info pages that we have out here, as it kind of dives in deeper to what you can get, or maybe what you already have on the plan that you might be on, or the plan that you're looking to jump up to. So that's kind of the start of it. What you end up with after you've claimed the profile, we've made you an admin and such, you'll have your dashboard here. I'm on our test track, which is called Your Favorite Track. So it has a lot of the same features that you'd be used to, or that you would have available as well. The main page is kind of like you'd expect, a bunch of alerts saying you should do this or do that, things that kind of help you along the way. And then there's these main action buttons here that'll take you to one of the items we're going to cover is season management tonight, but there's obviously race management, your profile details, which we'll get into in another webinar as well. And then kind of where we started was building websites. So just a bit of background is My Race Pass actually started as just a network of websites, and the whole idea of season management and race management kind of came about because we needed a better way to update the website. So if you don't have a website from us and you are feeling the pain of having to put in results or point standings or things like that, that part of it happens all sort of automatically as you run your race night. Your website is updated in near real time as well. So definitely one of those things to take advantage of if you're not already. But yeah, kind of jumping in here, down the left-hand side of your dashboard has kind of these same different portals here. The first one is your profile page, where you can upload a header image, profile image, to kind of draw attention to your listing in the app or on the website, different places like that. And then the profile page is very useful as well, has information about the facility, whether it be the actual track itself, where it's located, a ton of different little amenities, I guess, if you will, whether or not you have camping, ATM, restroom, things like that. So definitely fill this out if you haven't already. Take some time to put that in there. It will definitely save some phone calls if people can just open up the app and see that, yep, I can bring my kids. They got a play area. That's great. Different things like that. Not going to go through all these, but feel free to click around once you get in there. Let us know if you have any questions. I guess one thing I should touch on is the user section here. The user section has basically the different roles that anyone within the facility might have. So we just ask that you don't share your login. Obviously, if you want to give someone access, go in here and add a user, and that will allow them to have their own login. And should the need ever arise that you have to remove it, it'll make it a lot less painful. So that is kind of the profile tab in a nutshell. Moving along, I'm going to jump down to season management. So this is kind of progressive as you go here. There's, it gets a little more detailed, or I guess it becomes more useful as you go. I guess I'll say you won't necessarily get to race management until you've done season management, as an example. So season management, which is kind of our primary topic for tonight, is to basically do just that, to set up your season. This should be I'm not going to say it's a one-stop. You'll probably have to come back in here and make updates as the season goes along. But the idea is that you could have this all set up. You could have it all set up in January, whenever your schedule comes out. So if you know your schedule, now would be the time to get in there if you haven't already and add your schedule. But first, you're going to want to go to this config tab. So the config tab is where you kind of say what's going to be available for your schedule. So as a track, you obviously will just have a single track. If you're a series, you might add all the tracks that you're going to race at. And then vice versa, as a track, you'll add all the series that are going to come and visit. By doing that, the benefit of adding the series is that it's automatically going to link up the associated class that goes with that series. So the class is very important because that's kind of what makes the magic of the network all happen. So, by racing these all-star singles, as an example, if, say, National Flat Track has a website through us, and you as the racetrack have all-star singles as well, it's going to mesh the two together and know that wherever this data is displayed, that's the class that's being used. So if you can, always add the series first, because that's going to give you a hint as to what class should be used. From there, obviously anything that's non-sanctioned or kind of just your weekly racing stuff, you can add any number of classes that you need to. And that would kind of round out your config tab, again, kind of making these different pieces available for you to then continue down the list. So from there, after you get that added, you may want to jump down to events and create a schedule, or maybe you don't know your schedule yet, so you just want to set up a registration. So registration is super handy. It gives you an idea of who might be racing with you, allows you to gather driver info ahead of time, before that opening event, when everybody shows up and you have that long line out the back gate wondering, how are we ever going to get started on time? This registration tool is a huge help for that. So there's several different kinds of registrations. The primary one I would suggest is just do a yearly registration, just to get that name associated with the class, and you don't have to charge for it. It's more or less just a tool to build your database, so to speak. You can charge for it if you want to avoid having to take money at the back gate, or if you want to collect some money ahead of time. By all means, you're able to set your fees accordingly. The yearly registration, you can only have one of those per season. So the yearly is meant to just kind of be an all encapsulating, these are the drivers that are going to race with these classes. From there, you have your event registration. This is, just as the name implies, this is associated with a single event, and it's tied to your schedule. So in order to set one of those up, you would need to have your schedule, or at least a portion of your schedule, available. Again, that will give you an idea of who's going to plan on attending and racing at that event. So super helpful to kind of get some preliminary numbers, and also to, collect some funds ahead of time if you so choose. These last two, the general registration is more so for kind of non-driver registrations, whether it be like a banquet or a car show or what have you. And then this last one, what we found is a lot of people use this miscellaneous competitor registration for like a special event that goes, multiple days, or a speed weeks or things like that. Or a single event isn't enough. You might want to choose the miscellaneous competitor registration and say, register for whatever, July speed weeks, or whatever you want to call it there. But those are the 4 different types. Diving into one of those, so here's the yearly registration for your favorite track. You can see these are all the different classes that are listed out. If we go into the edit view of this, you can see that very simple to add another class, or maybe you want to drop a class and not allow them to register for that one. You can update any of the the description, different things like that, when it opens, closes, and then any associated fees. Down at the bottom, kind of hidden away down here, which is I guess just part of it, that you only have so much real estate, right? But there's this download section. So this download is what will show up when they register online. There'll be a place where at the beginning and at the end where they can download any supplemental paperwork that you might want to get, whether it be tax information, a rule book, maybe additional information for your announcer. That's a kind of a catch-all for anything that the online registration doesn't include. You can always add additional PDFs or or imagery or things like that for them to download. The funds for this are all handled by us. So if you choose to have a registration that they're going to pay for, we'll collect those funds for you. And we just need an ACH form on hand for us to send the payout every Monday. So that's kind of the gist of online registration. Again, you can have any number of those, but you only get one yearly. So set up your yearly registration, get the information coming in, and then if you'd like, or as time allows, definitely add some event registrations as well. From there, I'm going to continue on. Unless anybody has any questions, I will jump over to events. So the events are organized, again, we're inside of the 2024 season, and then the season has schedules. So you can see there's 4 schedules listed here, and then inside of each schedule is a collection of events. So the idea here is that you, excuse me, you organize your events in such a way that think of it almost like a championship. So you can have a season-long schedule that has every event in it that you're going to award points. You can have a special event schedule for maybe there's no points associated with it, so you just want to, group those events together. If you have, again, maybe a special event where it's like a 3 or 4 day show, you can make a separate schedule just for that, so you can keep track of points across 3 or 4 days instead of all 35 events. So the idea here is, again, to organize your events, but also kind of create that subset of events that are going to accumulate points towards the championship. So diving into one of these, after you've added your schedule, which is straightforward enough, I should maybe just show you that those schedules, just a name, a description, and then whether or not it's active, if you're going to show stats, and then the fantasy leaderboards. So we'll get into the fantasy here in a second, but adding a schedule is fairly trivial, I guess. Just to add that information, you end up with a schedule, and if we go into the schedule, that's when you can actually add your events. So once you're inside of a schedule, you can click Add Events, and that's going to prompt you to select a single date, or maybe you want to do multiple dates that happen to have like the same set of classes. So if I add, I'm just going to do these 3 Mondays in June, and I hit Next, you can very easily just say, yes, all 3 of those. These are some terrible classes we've got in here. I apologize. For all 3 of those nights, we're going to have these 3 classes, and we're, all the information that's for these 3 events is going to be the same. So you can just very quickly sort of crank out 3 events, or maybe your whole schedule. Like if you typically run the same classes each week, you can add a 15, 20 event schedule in just a matter of minutes, really. And you always have the opportunity then to go back into the event and edit any information. So after you've kind of created those events, you can then fine tune anything that you want to, as far as the name of the event, the description, when the gates open. This is a past event, so then that's not opened up. If I go to a future event here, you'll see that we can actually set gate times, when hot laps are going to start, when the racing begins. We'll have another webinar coming up on tickets, but this is where you could jump in, add some tickets, make those available for purchase. And then if you need to add a class or drop a class, this would be kind of where you do it on a per event basis. Rainouts, if you are in the unfortunate situation where Mother Nature is gonna win, that's where you would handle it right down here on the bottom. You click into the event and choose running as scheduled, and just change that to whatever the cancellation or postponement reason might be. The cool thing about this is it'll send a push notification. So after you put in your information there, you can actually send an alert right to people's phones, and keep them updated so that they're not blowing up your Facebook or calling or what have you. It'll immediately tell them that this event has been, in fact, rained out. From there, again, unless anyone has any questions, I am going to probably jump on down. I think the next thing we were going to cover was fantasy racing. So you saw that message when we first created our schedule that said allow fantasy leaderboards. So without any extra work, you're going to end up with a set of leaderboards that are sort of auto-generated. Fantasy runs itself. So as you check drivers into the back gate, as you make your races, as you put your results in, the matchups are created, the points are calculated, and the teams are ranked on how many points they've scored. So you don't have to actually do any extra effort for fantasy to work. I don't know if you guys have played fantasy or not, but it's pretty natural as far as from a scoring standpoint. Like I said, it just kind of happens. So the reason that we did this is to allow you the opportunity to maybe you want to upsell one of your sponsors, maybe you need some added value to kind of close a deal. Whatever the case may be, this is a great tool for you to go in here and you can add your own leaderboards. So you could say maybe you want to have just an April-May fantasy champion or something short like that, and you can put your local auto body shop on there, what have you, and then award a fantasy champion. The other part of it, besides being a great tool for you to kind of work in some marketing dollars, is that it gives your fans something to engage with, something to kind of get that spirit of competition going in the grandstands, something to kind of keep them engaged, and it kind of builds that sort of loyalty or competitive edge, if you will. So definitely keep an eye on fantasy. This is a great tool for your announcers. If you want to put your announcer on this, it's something that during downtime, it gives them something to talk about, just to as almost kind of filler content, but at the same time, it's doing something good for you guys to be able to kind of have that I guess added benefit of being a part of my race pass, is that you can offer these fantasy competitions to your fans and your sponsors. So with that, the last thing on the list for tonight, and then I'll open it up to questions, was this reports area. So this would probably take a whole webinar in itself. I just want to point out that there's a ton of different reports out here, whether it be based off your entry list, your lineups, different result reports that you can run, and you can download these. You can export them as a lot of them as PDFs or Excel files, points reports, and a ton of points reports, and then competitor reports. So if you need to get your drivers out of there, if you want to run different stats, things like that, this would be the place that you do that. So again, it's on the sidebar here. We looked at season management. The whole reporting area actually has its own spot here on the left, this little chart looking thing. So that's where those live. You maybe saw, I guess one thing I want to touch on before I open it up to questions, back on the dashboard here, there's an MRP live update right now. Please, if you haven't done so, make sure that you download this update, and you can do so just by clicking, and it'll take you to where you can download. Otherwise, you can just simply type in get mrp.live and hit enter. That will download the new version. You want to make sure you're on the version that starts with 5. Anything that's below there that starts with a 4, you will end up on race day. If you haven't updated, it's going to force you to update. So one of those things, I apologize, but we do need you to update before you get going for this season. So again, if you haven't done so, make sure you let your scorer know to update their MRP live before they're sitting in the tower with cars on the track. Not a situation we want to put anybody in. So be sure to do that ahead of time if at all possible. With that, kind of breeze through that rather quickly. So if there's questions, I would certainly like to take some of those. I can circle back on anything we touched on, dive deeper. There's, like I said earlier, I don't know if you were all on here just yet, but the MRP Promoter Facebook group does have the 1 o'clock version of this same webinar available if you'd like to go back and view that. There's a question from Ron. Yeah.
Hey, Rob.
Yep.
Hey, I'm this first year I've come back running the racetrack for 15 years, so this is kind of new for me. I still got a lot of the employees that know it, but I got to buy a laptop for them to run all that up on the score tower. What do I need to look for in a laptop for them to use to run this?
Sure. Doesn't have to be anything special. I wouldn't get the the bottom of the barrel, like you probably want to spend at least $300, I would say, as at a minimum. But as far as specs go, just make sure that, I mean, it's Windows based. So you want to make sure it's a Microsoft Windows based laptop, as MRP Live does not run on a Mac computer. But
Okay.
as far as specs, I would say at least 8 gigabytes of RAM. And then as far as, CPU, I don't think you're going to have any trouble there as long as you're in that probably $300 to $600 price range would satisfy most of it. But obviously, if you go up from there, it's gonna last you longer. So whatever's
Yeah. How
in.
many like USB ports is there? Like,
Yeah, that's a good
or
question.
can I just put an external one with
Yeah, you
5
can
or
use an
6?
external one. They're getting kind of stingy on those these days, where they like to, maybe they only include a USB-C port, so you
Yeah.
could end up using a hub anyhow. But you shouldn't need more than a couple USB ports, whether it be for hooking into a printer, or your USB hub that might have your mouse and keyboard on it. But um, yeah, that's a good question. It's kind of up to you. The main thing is that it's a Windows-based machine that isn't probably not off the clearance rack, but
What is it, like Windows 12 now? What are they up to?
Windows 11 still. But yeah,
Windows
um,
11?
yeah,
Okay.
which, yeah, you should be just fine there.
Okay. I just want to make
Definitely,
sure get them on.
yeah. By all means, if you had questions, or if you're getting close to buying something, you want to reach out and just double check, just hit us up at support@myracepass, and we'd be happy to review it and make sure you're in a good spot there. But yeah, good question.
Okay.
Um,
Because we're going to want to push it over in some of the VIP suites and stuff too. So,
sure,
okay. That's good. Thank you.
perfect. Yeah, absolutely. Ron, getting to your question there, I'm going to see if I can share this other screen that I have MRP Live open, and this will be good for everybody, actually. So thanks for asking, Ron. How to check your MRP Live version. So this is just loading up here. Excuse me. When MRP Live opens up, you click on Help here, and then there'll be this little About link down at the bottom, and that's going to give you the version number. And thank goodness I was updated on this computer. I really would have looked terrible, but there you can see the version. So again, inside of MRP Live, go to Help and About, and that'll show you the version that you're currently on. So just make sure it starts with a 5, and you should be good to go. Jeanette says, if I already set up my schedule but did not activate the fantasy preset options, how can I get it set up? Sure. So I'll reshare my other screen here. 1 second. All right, so getting fantasy going, if you chose, like when you were adding a schedule, if you opted out of fantasy, you can always go back in here to fantasy and click add leaderboard. And pretty much the default options will do the same thing as what would have happened had you left that box checked. So give it a name, give it a subtitle, and then you can choose to, maybe you want to have all your classes combined. So whoever does the best across all classes, and then you also want to maybe do one for, just for your late models. So you could have a late model champion and a overall champion. So that's what this does. If you choose that, it'll be your overall, and then you can come back, add another leaderboard, and do just your late models, however you want to do that. And then you can have it be across an entire schedule. So every event that's in the schedule will be part of fantasy. Or you can say we're just going to do it, April 1st through April 30th. And that way, if people feel like they got out of it or they're running behind, they'll have another chance in May. So I'm a big fan of doing the shorter date ranges. And the cool part about it is you can actually do both. So you could have an overall one that does your entire schedule, and then you can have a fantasy leaderboard for just sort of smaller windows of time, just to kind of keep people playing, keep them interested. And again, maybe you have another sponsor that just wants to come on and try it for a month. So that is, in a nutshell, Jeanette, how you would go about adding whatever leaderboards you'd like to. Thanks for that question. Ron, make sure it was either net forward. Oh, Something, did you have a bad experience, Ron, with the new computer? Hopefully that was rectified. Sorry to hear that. And then Jenny asks about how many people visit the website. Yeah, absolutely. So all of our websites are set up when we launch them with Google Analytics. So Google Analytics is the provider for all of our traffic reporting, whether it be users, the devices that they're using, when they went to the website, what pages they looked at, different things like that. So all we need to know, Jenny, if you can just send an email to support@myracepass with an email that you can use to log into Google products. So it doesn't have to be an @Gmail address. It just needs to be an email address that you can use to log into Gmail, or in this case, Google Analytics. So we'd be happy to get you set up with that. And I think actually looking up the feed here, so you're with Wilmot. I think there was someone who reached out from the company that's maybe doing some of your marketing, and I believe I got them set up. But if that's not the case, please have them follow up. I think that was from this morning, if I remember right. But good question as well. Anything else? Just kind of circling back here to the main dashboard. Any questions as we were going through things? I guess maybe I should have scrolled down the dashboard. There's a couple of important things here on the homepage that I maybe glossed over. This favorite section is pretty cool. This is a graph over time that shows how many people, when they open up the app, they click the star on your profile. That's important that you get that message out there. Have your announcers make sure to tell people to open up the app and favorite your profile, because those are the people that are going to get the push notification when you either do a rain out, when you add a news article, when you go live, when MRP live starts and the cars are out on the track the first time around, it trips the transponder loop. We'll send out a notification to everybody who has favorited your track. So be sure to get that message out there and just kind of watch this graph grow. Obviously, we're not doing so good on your favorite track here. It's pretty flat line, but take a look at yours. Hopefully your graph looks better. And if not, be sure, like I said, to communicate that. Make sure your fans know how to stay in the loop. Going down the page here, some of these are fairly self-explanatory, but I did want to touch on the sandbox. Way down at the bottom of your dashboard is a link to Open Sandbox. What that will do, I'm just going to go ahead and click on it. It's going to take you into a duplicated environment. So it's going to ask me to log in again. I apologize. Uh-oh. Oh, no. Sorry. Oh, actually, I don't think I have access here. Let me pull this other one up. Here we go. Share this other screen instead. So I do want to show you this. It's important that if you guys want to test anything out, the sandbox is the place to do that. So again, here, if I go to Open Sandbox, you're going to see kind of an ugly blue bar down the side. We did that intentionally so you would know that you are, in fact, in the sandbox. So anytime you see this blue bar down the side, you can feel free to do whatever you'd like. You're not gonna screw something up, or you're not gonna have something be put out there that you don't want people to see. The sandbox is completely isolated. It's fully functional, except for one thing. There is no MRP live in the sandbox. Everything else, as far as adding schedules, running a race night, if you want to put in some lineups and test different scenarios out, try out different point schemes and see how the points would have played out if you did something else. Maybe you want to practice setting up different fantasy leaderboards, a whole number of things here, online tickets, whatever you wanted to kind of play with and see what it's all about. The sandbox would be the place to do that. We just ask that you don't use the live version to do any testing, because that will obviously create an issue with data and we'll have to go clean it up. So if you want to do any testing, playing around with things, definitely jump over to the sandbox. This does refresh every Sunday night. So if you do something in the sandbox and you want to keep it, make sure to kind of probably go in on Friday or Saturday and try to download or export something out of there. The nice thing, the nice thing about it is that anything that you did in the live environment, the production we call it, on Sunday night will get pulled into Sandbox. So you can go back and kind of review and say, what if we had done this lineup differently? What would have happened? It's on a weekly schedule where it does get refreshed. So just want to make you aware of this kind of super helpful tool that we put out there for you to learn at your leisure, if you will. So that is available. We talked about updating MRP Live. Ron, I don't know if you said that before or after, but to get to Sandbox, again, from your main dashboard, so the top left, click on that. It'll take you to your main dashboard, and then scroll all the way down to the bottom, and then there's an open Sandbox there right on the bottom left. So yeah, great tool to refresh any skills that may have gotten rusty in the off season. Certainly would advise going in there and just kind of taking a peek around so that you don't have to use the production environment to find out that you did something wrong. Always try it out in the sandbox first if you have any questions. So speaking of questions, mrphelp.com is a great resource for, and I'm probably logged in, so it's not actually going to take me there. Let's see. 1 second here. Open up another window. So mrphelp.com is our online help center. So once this gets queued up, the search function here is actually super helpful. There's some primary questions that we see throughout the race season for promoters right here. But if you wanted to come in here and you type in schedule, it's going to take you right to a link that's going to probably reiterate a lot of the stuff that I just went over. And there's even a video there if you want to see a recap on how to do that, but it'll walk you right through how to set up a schedule. Shot in the dark here. I don't know if this exists or not, but if I type in fantasy, there's going to be maybe something along those lines. We're always updating this, so if there's not something here now, there could be something at some point. Here we go. So this talks about how to set up some fantasy stuff. Adding prizes. We didn't get into that as much as I probably should have, but you can add prizes for any number of positions. If you just want to do your champion or maybe top 5, whatever the case may be, you can add prizes, and those get displayed as well. When people go in to play fantasy, they'll see what's available, whether it be a cash prize or a t-shirt, or maybe it's a pair of tickets to next week's races. Little stuff like that goes a long way, so keep that in mind. But again, this is mrphelp.com. You can go support.myracebest.com or just type in mrphelp.com. I mentioned this earlier, but our support email address, support@myracebest.com. If you have any questions that you can't find the answer to it out here, by all means, shoot us an email, support@myracebest.com. A few more URLs, and I'll maybe just put these all right in the chat so you can have them if you want to copy and paste them out. I didn't paste in the best, but myracebest.com/YouTube is going to take you to a full series of videos, whether it be webinars on the same topic we just covered or any variety of the feature sets that's out there. And then if you haven't, or someone on your team has not joined our Facebook My Race Pass Promoter Support Group, certainly go on Facebook, search for that. And we do typically, most of our webinars are on Facebook. Like I mentioned at the start, I thought we were going to end up doing just a Q&A here due to a lack of attendance, but you guys really showed up tonight, so thank you for that. It's always nice having plenty of ears on the other end, so thank you guys. And last thing, I guess, if you want to join future webinars, myracebest.com/live-training. So you can see the remainder of our schedule continues on Wednesday. Again, 1 and 7 o'clock, we'll be talking about race management, which we touched on briefly tonight, how to actually get connected to your orbits and Westhold, how to set up your points and pay schemes, which is very important. And then something that you'll need at the end of the year is that 1099 report. So if there are no other questions, I don't want to cut this short, but certainly go back, watch any videos to go over anything I might have missed, or join us again on Wednesday.
I got a quick one.
Yeah, go ahead, Chuck. Yeah.
Hey, so when you got 2 of these scheduled today, I guess I was wrong. I thought each one would be a repeat for us that's running a motor grader all day and doing stuff. So I need to try to get to the 1 o'clock ones if I can. Is that like the next one is going to be the race management? Is it going to be the same thing at both times, or do I need to try to get to 1 o'clock.
Typically, it's the same thing at both times. We had Austin had something come up tonight, so I'm kind of just filling in for him.
Okay.
But if you do miss the 1 o'clock, and I would say there's no harm in going back and watching that one. It'll be on either Facebook, our promoter support group, or on YouTube as well. So generally we do the same thing, 1 and 7 o'clock, just for, like you said, the people that can't attend during the day can catch it at night, and vice versa. So if you have things going on in the evening, but you happen to be available at 1 o'clock, you can certainly jump in there as well. So
okay, thank you very much.
absolutely, thank you all for joining. I'll hang out for a few more minutes if anybody has any questions. Otherwise, I hope you have a good rest of your evening, and we'll talk to you soon.